Hi folks, Reverend Crystal Cox here, and I'm going to read to you today out of the book called Living Fearlessly by Sheila Walsh. We're starting in chapter 4. I once was lost. Boldly I come before your throne to claim your mercy, immense and free. No greater love will ever be known, for oh, my God, it found out me. Charles Wesley. Grace meets you where you are, but it doesn't leave you where it found you. Anne Lamott. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. Psalm 23, 1-3. Will you always welcome me home? I was channel surfing one night, trying to figure out why it held such a great appeal for my husband. Why would a man flick through 97 channels when he has a TV guide telling him what's on each channel? And why does he have to do it all over again when there's a commercial break? These are mysteries too deep for me. I chuckle because I do the same thing. Before I got to the 20th channel, I stopped surfing because I was getting dizzy. Somewhere along the way, I had heard a comedian tell a story about his grandfather, who had started to exercise at age 75. He walks 2 miles every day, he said. He just turned 76, and we have no idea where he is. He must be miles away now. I laughed at the notion. Then I thought, why are you laughing? That's how you've lived much of your life. One of my greatest fears as a young Christian was that I would lose my way, keep on walking in the wrong direction, and in the end miss God's will for my life. When I was a student at London Bible College, I had a friend named Steve who believed it was God's will that I should marry him. I had no desire to marry him. For one thing, he wanted me to wear a scarf on my head, wear no makeup whatsoever, and have 53 children. When I told him I was not worthy of his generous offer, and that I would pass, he said I had missed God's will, and what's more, nothing in my life would ever work out from that point on. For a while he had me worried, until I telephoned my mother, who told me not to believe such nonsense. But Steve's attempts to manipulate me fed into my belief that I was walking a narrow tightrope in my life. If I were to make one mistake, I would be lost forever. What if I got on the wrong bus, and God's choice of a mate for me was on a different bus? Would I be single all my life? What if God had decided to give me 21 years to come to the place of total surrender to Him, and I didn't get there until 22? Was the whole game over? How patient will God be with me when I talk to Him over and over about the same things, but I never bother to change? What if God gives each of us 400 chances to get it right, and that's it? At misstep number 401, we've used up our portion of grace, and there's no more. I hear these kinds of questions all the time. It's the cry to know our purpose in life, combined with the fear that in a moment of ignorance or rebellion, we'll miss God's will and be miserable forever. Maybe we get only so many chances to come back home after we've wallowed with the pigs. I wonder if that's why we're afraid to talk too honestly with God, just in case He might say, "Off to hell with you." You reprobate? That's funny. Our fear is a bit ridiculous, though, when you think about it. He is God, after all, so there's a fairly good chance He knows what we're thinking anyway, wouldn't you say? If we were to find the courage to live an honest life before God, facing our fears and walking with open hands, rather than hands that are grasping for control, we need to look at ourselves as we really are, rather than as we wish we were. In our many selves, Elizabeth O'Connor observed, we are only able to grow in our relationship with God to the extent that we are willing to know ourselves. And John Calvin wrote, in his Institutes of the Christian Religion, our wisdom, insofar as it ought to be deemed true and solid wisdom, consists almost entirely of two parts, the knowledge of God and of ourselves. What I know is this. When I was supposedly at the best place in my life, I was totally miserable. I was on TV. I was a writer and a singer doing all the things I loved to do. But I was lost. I look back on that time in utter amazement at the grace of God that burst through my pathetic attempts to feel good about myself. He longed to show me His love, to teach me that life is not just about being happy. It's much bigger than that. It's much better than that. I spend so much energy trying to rid myself of the dull ache inside. I believed that if I could be useful to God and to others, then I would feel better about myself. Yet I never did. As you read this book, perhaps you are bitter and disillusioned. You're not even sure why you're reading these words at all. In ways too painful to articulate, God has failed you, or you have failed Him. And in as far as you can see, the conversation is over. But maybe not. I bought Christian a new puzzle recently. The pieces came in a wooden box with a picture of 3 bears in funny costumes on the cover. Inside there were about 40 pieces to choose from, so you can make the bears look different each time you do a puzzle. You can choose different heads or jackets or shoes. We have a lot of fun making silly-looking bears. One night I was tidying up Christian's toys after he had gone to sleep, and I came across the puzzle. He had pushed it under the sofa, his version of cleaning up. I smiled as I saw the way he left the bear with a yellow jacket, a pink shirt, and a cowboy hat. I held it for a while and I thought, this is what we do to God. We paste on Him bits of our past, our dad's temper, our husband's disapproval, our mother's criticism, a preacher's legalism. We add what we hear at church, what we remember from Sunday school, what someone told us about the wrath of God, all the good bits and the bad bits, the truth, the fantasy, and the lies we believe. Make up our puzzle of God. Our distorted impressions make it almost impossible to throw open our arms unreservedly to Him. So what are we to do? Only God can help us change this picture. Perhaps if we could get to know a few people who have had dynamic confrontation with the love of God, it would illuminate the face of God. So let's face our fears together as we look at the lives of some of our fellow travelers and see how they fared in their journeys. We will see ourselves in one or more of their stories, because whatever we fear and face today is not new. Throughout all of history, we humans have struggled to trust God. From the moment our story began, we have been trying to wrench control out of divine hands. But even when we go to the ends of the earth in an effort to run away from God, there is always a way home. Let's take a fresh look at an old story of 2 lost sons and see what liberating truths we can mine. The selfish son. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything else. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired men have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired men.' So he got up and he went to his father." Luke 15:11-20. I have been familiar with this story since I was a small child. Perhaps you have too. In Sunday school, we call it the story of the prodigal son. But I'm not sure this is entirely accurate. It's really the story of 2 lost boys who missed the whole point of what it means to be a son. If we place the story back into its historical context, we see a different picture, and an incredible picture that's about as good as it gets down here. Kenneth Bailey is an active lecturer on Middle Eastern New Testament studies and professor emeritus of New Testament at the Tantor Ecumenical Institute in Jerusalem. He is regarded as one of the finest experts in unlocking the cultural keys to Luke 15. In studying his writings, I have discovered several things about these two sons that have deepened my understanding of the magnitude of God's love for his children and how willing he is to get his feet dirty in pursuit of our hearts, even when we have broken his. Father, give me my share of the estate. This was an outrageous request. In Middle Eastern culture, it was equivalent to saying, Father, I wish you were dead. Can you imagine for a moment how you would feel if your child came to you and made such a callous statement? You gave me life. You fed and clothed me, nursed me through all my childhood illnesses. Lost countless nights of sleep as you cared for me. Now I wish you were dead, so that I might have no obligation to you and just go on with my life? Think of the implications of this selfish son's request. His father was forced to sell half of what he owned in order to hand over cash to this child, who was about to walk off into the sunset, thinking nothing of the decimation at home and the humiliation his father would face in his community. So the boy leaves and he goes through the money, half of everything a wealthy father had built up over the years in record time. What can he do now? Go home? Absolutely not. He knew that if he went home, the ceremony awaited him at the village gate. In those days, if a Jewish son disgraced his father by taking his inheritance and losing it all to the Gentiles, he was no longer considered a son. If he ever tried to come home, he would be met at the entrance to his village by men carrying a large earthen-filled jar with burned nuts and corn. The men would break it at his feet and shout his name aloud, declare that he was cut off from his people forever. The prodigal son knew the consequences of disgracing his father. He knew them well. And yet he had still had the gall to leave his village with his father's inheritance in hand. Isn't it amazing how reckless we can be with our lives at times? I feel it in my own soul. I don't trust myself as far as I could throw myself. It seems to me as though I live between heaven and hell on a daily basis. I see the way God uses my life to encourage his people, and yet I see this sinful, flawed, selfish woman in the mirror. Within my earthly temple there is a crowd. There's one of us that's humble, one that's proud. There's one that's broken-hearted for her sins, and one that unrepentant sits and grins. There's one that loves her neighbor as herself, and one that cares for naught but fame and self. From such perplexing care I would be free, if I could once determine which is me. Author unknown. The trouble is, I'm both of these people. It's similar to what Dostoevsky writes about in The Brothers Karamazov. Dmitri, one of the brothers, moans that Jezebel, the harlot, and the Virgin Mary both seem to reside within him, and his life would be so much simpler if he could just get rid of them. Don't we all feel this? Let's have an honest moment here. We're all the same. We just pretend that we are not. No matter how much we love God, no matter how good we look on the surface, our minds race in 1,000,001 different directions. If our thought lives were made available for all to see, most of us would be on the first flight to Mars. We're all the same. We just pretend we're not. All have turned away. They have together become worthless. There is no one who does good, not even one. Romans 3:12. Not me, not you. Barbara Johnson often says, we are only as sick as our secrets. This is so true. It's why a couple of women in my life who know the inside of my skin as well as my husband's know the outside, I don't yell from the rooftop what's true about my sinfulness, but I am blessed with good friends to confess to. I trust them enough to tell them the truth, not just about what I've done, but also about what I fear I might do. I believe we are far less likely to live out our secret selves if they are brought before the throne of grace and shared with trusted sisters or brothers who won't judge us, but who will pray regularly for us and love us fiercely. That is exactly what we will be doing at the Bringing Back Goddess Church. Again, folks, this book is Living Fearlessly, and my name is Reverend Crystal Cox. The author is Sheila Walsh, and Goddess bless you all. I hope that you have someone in your life that you can talk to. I hope that you are praying to God, to the Great Spirit, and I hope that you are gentle to yourself in your own mind and that you're finding time to get your hands in the dirt. Goddess bless you all.